What's good, YouTube? Here are my predictions for this week's fight night, Garbrandt versus Font. And this card is pretty good on paper. There's some fun fights on here, you know. But the first fight I'm going to be predicting is Edmen Shahbazyan versus Jack Hermansson. Now, this fight was supposed to happen last week, but I believe COVID protocol or whatever forced it to be pushed to this week. So this fight's a very interesting fight in my opinion. Jack Hermansson, he's a good wrestler, good grappler. He out-grappled Jacare Souza, which is freaking crazy. He tapped out David Branch, who is a good grappler himself. Tapped out Kelvin Gastelum. So Jack Hermansson has some good wins under his belt. And Edmen Shahbazyan is honestly, he's untested, unproven. He's beaten some good lower ranked guys like Darren Stewart in a split decision. He knocked out Brad Tavares, but he's untested against the elite of the middleweight division. The only guy who he's fought who was elite competition was Derek Brunson, and he gassed out. And he got knocked out. He got finished after he gassed out. So this is going to be a huge test. Now, stylistically, I think this could be a good fight for Edmen Shahbazyan because Jack Hermansson has showed in the past when he gets rocked early, he is susceptible to getting put out. Thiago Santos and Jared Cannonier both rocked Hermansson early, and they were able to get him out of there. So, he's shown a lack of recoverability. But in the Vittori fight, he showed the exact opposite. He got rocked, and he had huge heart, stayed in that fight. Ended up losing a decision, but he didn't get finished in the first round after getting rocked bad by Vittori. So, it could go either way. But I think if this fight makes it past the halfway point in the second round, Hermansson's going to win the fight. Going to use the takedowns, control him, dominate him, possibly get a sub, possibly get a TKO, or just dominate him for the second half of the fight. But because Shahbazyan's gas tank is bad. It's bad. And until proven otherwise, I'm going to assume it's bad. So I'm going to assume coming into this fight, if it makes it past the halfway point in the second round, Hermansson should get the W. Now the question becomes, can Shahbazyan stuff the takedowns that's going to come early and get a knockout? And that's where the problems come in, because can he do that? Can he not do that? My final prediction, I'm going to go with Shahbazyan with the first round TKO, KO, whatever you want to say. I think Shahbazyan is going to be able to land a big head kick on Hermansson. He's going to land a big head kick on Hermansson as Hermansson's trying to close the distance. Possibly dips right into a head kick or something. Shahbazyan 100% has the power. I don't think, in the first round specifically, Hermansson's not going to be able to take the fight to the ground because Shahbazyan has shown he has strong defensive wrestling when he's not tired. When he's not tired, he has very strong defensive wrestling. So I think he will be able to stuff the takedowns in the first round. And I think he's going to catch Hermansson with the head kick, rock him, and get him out of there. So I'm going to go with Shahbazyan first round TKO. A lot of people are hating on Shahbazyan just because his one loss to Derek Brunson. There's no shame in losing to Derek Brunson. The loss isn't shameful. What's shameful is the conditioning he came in to that fight with. That's what's shameful. Because he basically gassed out a minute in, 2 minutes into the second round. That's the shameful part, not getting finished by Derek Brunson, because Derek Brunson's a tough dude. And since going to Sanford MMA, Derek Brunson has performed insane. But yeah, I think Shahbazyan will be able to get Hermansson out of there. So now we go on to Norma Dumont versus Felicia Spencer in the women's featherweight division, where there are no rankings. As of right now, I believe there are 4 female fighters signed in the featherweight division. I believe it's Felicia Spencer, I think it's 3. Felicia Spencer, Norma Dumont, and Danielle Wolf. Obviously, there are other people who could go to 45, like Nunes, Holly Holm. There's some people who could go to 45, but there's only really 3 signed 45 fighters right now. But yeah, this fight's very interesting stylistically. Because Norma Dumont is an outstanding BJJ artist, and Felicia Spencer is a very high-level grappler. So, usually when 2 really, really good grapplers face each other, it ends up becoming a striking match. But I don't really see this happening because Felicia Spencer has not come across to me as someone who would be afraid to take the fight to the ground if they're fighting another elite grappler. She just doesn't seem like that person. Look, she tried to take Nunes down how many times? And Nunes arguably is a better grappler than Spencer. She's definitely no slouch, so Felicia, you know what I'm saying? She doesn't come across to me as the type who would be afraid or hesitant to take someone down who's a good BJJ artist. Now, in the striking, let me just say, if it does become a striking match, expect a very untechnical, sloppy striking match in which Felicia Spencer might be able to point it out. Norma Dumont might be able to point it out. But I'm really hoping, for everyone's sake, that this fight gets to the ground. Because these two, like I said, their specialties is grappling. So, and on the ground, I think if Norma Dumont is able to take Felicia Spencer down, it could be big time problems for Spencer. Because here's the thing, Spencer is a little undersized for 45, if I'm being honest. She's a little undersized. I feel like she could make 35 if she wanted to. But she's comfortable at the 45 division, but I think she's a little undersized. While Norma Dumont, she can make 35, but I think 45 is a little more natural for her than Felicia Spencer. Like, she isn't extremely undersized at 45. Like, I feel like Spencer is. Like, Spencer looked she looked so much smaller than Nunes, and Nunes makes 35, and she looks so much smaller than Nunes. So this fight's tough. If it gets to the ground, I really think it depends who's in the controlling position. Because on the ground, it's interesting because from the ground, if Felicia Spencer is attacking, like if Felicia Spencer's on top, either one could have success. Because Norma Dumont could throw up guillotines, she could throw up triangles, try to get arm bars. You know what I'm saying? She could throw up different stuff from her back. While Felicia Spencer, she's going to be looking to advance her position and transition into some type of submission, whether it's a rear naked or maybe a head and arm choke or something like that. But if it's reversed, if Norma Dumont's on top and Felicia Spencer's on the bottom, this could be big time problems for Spencer because she hasn't shown me anything to where she's very competent from her back. But I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I haven't seen much of her on her back. But from what I've seen, she's not very competent on her back. So that could be major worries for Felicia if Norma Dumont's able to take her down and be able to, take control from the top. But ultimately, in my final decision, I'm going to go with Felicia Spencer. I think both these women are crafty enough to hold their own on the bottom. But I have a feeling Felicia Spencer, she's going to overwhelm Norma, and I think Norma might even gas out later on to the fight because I think Felicia Spencer is going to put a pace on her and she's going to want to grapple with her a lot. So I think Felicia Spencer is going to be able to take Norma down, get the back, and eventually get a rear naked choke on her. So I'm going to go with Felicia Spencer by a second round submission. And now the co-main event. Huge title implications in the women's strawweight division as Xiaonan takes on Carla Esparza. Now Carla Esparza, she's a very, very strong wrestler. She can keep the pace up for 3 rounds. Xiaonan is a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. She has good striking, she has good grappling, she has good wrestling, but she's not really great or elite anywhere. And honestly, I think that's really what's going to hinder her in this fight, is that she's not great anywhere, but she's good everywhere. I think it's also going to allow her to be successful, especially early in the fight. I think early on, Xiaonan is going to be able to stuff Carla Esparza's takedowns. She's going to be able to outstrike Carla Esparza, and Carla Esparza, at being 5'1", it's going to hurt her in almost every one of her fights. It's going to hurt her in almost every one of her fights. And Xiaonan, she's like, to close the distance on Xiaonan, she's going to have to eat shots. It's just the way it is. And I think early on, it's going to be troublesome for Esparza. But I think as the fight progresses, Esparza's pressure and her unwillingness to stop shooting for takedowns will allow her to wear on Xiaonan. And I think she will eventually be successful in the second round on her takedowns, and she'll like continue to build that momentum. And yeah, I think that's gonna allow her to be victory. Now, if Xiaonan, if her cardio can hold up for 3 rounds, like 3 hard rounds, like grappling for 3 rounds, like if she could grapple for 3 rounds, knock ass out, stuff the takedowns, and be able to outstrike Carla Esparza, I'd be very impressed. And she'd 100%. Would she be next for the title? You see what I kind of want? Well, with Tatiana Suarez apparently being cleared to come back, maybe Xiaonan could fight Carla Esparza. The fight I've always wanted to see was Carla Esparza versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. It's always been the fight I wanted to see. It's the fight I still want to see. If Tatiana Suarez is back to compete, but maybe Xiaonan, if she wins, she could fight fight Tatiana Suarez. But if Carla Esparza wins, it's title shot for her, right? It's title time. She's already fought Joanna. She's already fought Tatiana Suarez. I mean, the only thing that makes sense for Carla Esparza if she wins the fight is title shot, in my opinion. But and she beat Rose Namajunas, so there's also that storyline. So yeah, ultimately my final decision, I'm gonna go with Carla Esparza. I think she's gonna be able to wear on Yan Xiaonan in the later rounds, and I think she's gonna be able to get a decision. It might even be a split decision, but I just think she's gonna put a pace and a pressure on Xiaonan that Xiaonan is eventually gonna wilt to. And now onto the main event. This main event is very, very fun in my opinion. The bantamweight division, which I will continue to state, is my favorite division, my personal favorite division in the UFC. The bantamweight division is just so fun. It's alive, it's popping, it's insane. I'm very, the matchups they can make in this division are insane. They're really fun. But this fight, Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt, I'm just going to say my personal opinion. My personal opinion is when Cody Garbrandt is on, he's defensively responsible. He doesn't get into firefights. He doesn't leave his chin open for his opponents to hit. And he's just, in his flow state, just very comfortable. I think he's the best bantamweight in the world. I think he's the best bantamweight in the world, and I think the only bantamweight who could give him problems is Petr Yan. When Cody is on, he's the only bantamweight who could give him problems. And still, Cody Garbrandt might be able to edge that one out. Because any wrestler who tries to fight Cody Garbrandt, you're fucked. Cody Garbrandt's the best defensive wrestler in the bantamweight division. Better than even Jose Aldo. Because Jose Aldo got taken down by both Marlon Moraes and by Marlon Vera, Chito Vera. He got taken down by both those guys. So, 100%, in my opinion, Cody Garbrandt is the best defensive wrestler in the bantamweight division. So any wrestler tries to fight Garbrandt, you're fucked. So basically it comes down to, can you outstrike Garbrandt? Can you get him into a firefight, get him defensively irresponsible to where you can clip him and knock him out? And Rob Font 100% has the skills to do such thing, because Rob Font is such a skilled boxer. His jab is absolutely brutal. The fact that he was able to drop Marlon Moraes with a jab is insane. The fact that he's such a good striker, man. Rob Font, when you look at Rob Font, all his losses come to wrestling. His loss to a Sun Sal was due to wrestling. His loss to John Lineker was due to him mixing the martial arts and throwing strikes and wrestling. When Rob Font fights pure strikers, like when he fought Sergio Pettis, that was a pure striking match. Beat him up. He was able to beat Ricky Simone. He was able to stuff the takedowns and strike. And I don't think Cody Garbrandt is going to shoot on Rob, and Rob obviously isn't going to shoot on Cody. And even if he does, he's not going to be successful. So this is going to be a pure stand-up, and these guys are going to go at it. Now I 100% could see Rob Font touching Garbrandt up, lowering Garbrandt to get into a firefight, and then knocking him out. 100%. But if Garbrandt comes in the way I expect him to, like I said, he's the best bantamweight in the world. And I don't think anyone could beat him, not Rob Font. So my final prediction is Cody Garbrandt to win a decision. I think Cody Garbrandt 100%, if he's on, he could knock out Rob Font as well. But I think Rob Font is tough enough and durable enough to not get finished. I think this fight's going to go very similarly to the Dominic Cruz fight. They're very similar, and Dominic Cruz and Rob Font are very similar in stature. Obviously, Rob Font isn't as wild and unpredictable with his movements like Dominic Cruz, and he also isn't defensively as irresponsible as Dominic Cruz does tend to leave his hands down and leave his chin up sometimes. But like I said, his unpredictable movement allows him to get away with such defensive flaws. But Rob Font, his chin's always down, his chin's always tucked, hands are up, and he's a tough guy to handle. Rob Font, he's a real problem in this division. I just think if Cody comes in at his best, I don't think anybody has anything for him, and that includes Rob Font. So yeah, those are my predictions for this week's fight night, Font versus Garbrandt. I expect this fight to be really good. Huge implications in the bantamweight division. With Jan and Sterling, I don't even know what's going on with Sterling. Sterling had neck surgery or something like that. So Sterling might not be back for a few months. They might make an interim bantamweight title. And the winner of this fight might throw themselves in that conversation for fighting for an interim belt, if there is one. If they do make an interim belt. But yeah, that's all I got for you. Hope you all enjoy. I'm gone.